The lights inside the penthouse ballroom gleamed like bottled starlight, soft gold reflections dancing across polished marble and glinting champagne flutes. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass, Manhattan shimmered like a breathing circuit board. Each tower pulsing with silent ambition. At the center of it all stood Claire Rowan. In a jet-black satin dress tailored with surgical precision. She looked like she'd been carved from the same cold marble as the floor beneath her heels. Her voice, clipped and confident, was carrying across the room, charming a circle of venture capitalists, media executives, and foreign dignitaries. "And so," Claire said, lips barely moving, "our next phase of integration doesn't just predict consumer behavior, it reshapes it in real time." Laughter, applause, another round of "You've cliquo," not a hair out of place, not a stutter, not a breath wasted. From the periphery, Eli watched her, 21, slender, shoulders slightly hunched from years of shrinking into the background. The catering uniform hung loose on him, sleeves too long, collar slightly wilted. He clutched a silver tray like a shield. She hadn't noticed him yet. Not really. With careful steps, he weaved between glass heels and tailored suits, balancing 3 champagne flutes and 1 tall glass of iced water. His hands trembled slightly more from the sight of her than from the weight of the drinks. A whisper of recognition tugged at his chest. "No, don't do this now. Just do your job." He approached her table. Claire turned slightly, gesturing with her hand an impatient flick to indicate more water. Her laughter barely paused. He reached forward, then a slip. A jolt, a hand bumped into his elbow, the glass tipped. Icy water spilled down the front of Claire's dress, soaking the silk like blood on paper. Gasps floated through the room. Small and sharp. Time held its breath. Claire blinked. Once. The crowd went silent. The lights suddenly colder. She turned to him slowly, her jaw tightening by a fraction. "Are you Darius?" I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Eli's voice cracked. His eyes darted, searching for something. Escape? Compassion? Neither arrived. "You're done," Claire said, voice flat, no fury, no yelling. Just finality. "Get out." A manager appeared behind Eli, gripping his arm lightly but firmly. Eli's eyes stayed on Claire for a heartbeat longer. Nothing flickered in hers, no flicker of memory, no ghost of recognition. Just the CEO, the machine, the brand. He nodded once, lips pressed together, then turned and walked away through the murmuring crowd. Behind him, laughter cautiously resumed. Claire reached for a napkin without looking back. Outside, the night pressed cold fingers against the city's skin. Eli stood beneath the white light of a service exit lamp, the sounds of the gala muffled by double glass doors behind him. He didn't shiver, just breathed, shallow and even, like a man trying not to exist for a minute. Snow hadn't started falling yet, but the wind carried its promise. He crouched beside a dented metal bin and began to undo the buttons of his catering vest. His hands moved methodically, quiet, resigned. His breath clouded around his face like ghosts. Just another job gone. Another day on the fringe, but as he reached into his pocket to pull out his phone, something else came loose. A small, time-worn photograph slipped out and fluttered to the concrete like a falling leaf. Eli blinked, then slowly bent to pick it up. It was creased and water-stained. A photo of 2 children, mud on their cheeks, laughter frozen in time, a boy and a girl. Maybe 5 and 8. Knees scraped, hands clasped. His thumb gently brushed the face of the girl. Her eyes sparkled in the picture the same way Claire's had. "Before," he whispered to the wind, "you really don't remember me, huh?" He tucked the photo back into his pocket like it was a secret too sharp to leave exposed. The streetlight above him flickered once. Inside the building, through a window high above, he could see her silhouette. Claire, moving elegantly through the crowd. Detached, composed, oblivious. He turned his back to it. A yellow cab screeched past. Eli pulled his hood over his head and walked toward the subway. No one stopped him. No one knew. To them, he was just a waiter. To her, he was nobody, but to himself and to that photo in his pocket he was still her brother, and tonight had only confirmed what he feared most. She had forgotten. Claire Rowan didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't feel, or so she told herself. The black car rolled silently through Midtown, her reflection flickering in the tinted window flashes of a woman carved from chrome and glass. She didn't notice the lights of the city or the crowds bustling along the sidewalk. She was replaying the moment over and over, the splash of ice water, the gasps, the boy's trembling hands. Pathetic, she muttered under her breath, brushing an invisible wrinkle from her dress. Pull yourself together. Her penthouse awaited at the edge of the skyline, perched like a queen's rook above the city. The elevator opened directly into her living room, minimalist, spotless, cold. Walls of glass, polished concrete, a liquor cart no one else ever touched. She walked straight to it and poured herself a drink. No ice. In the silence, the tick of a minimalist clock felt louder than it should. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, watching her reflection hover over the glowing city. A queen in her tower. Then, slowly, she opened a drawer in the marble credenza behind her. Inside, a small velvet box, a stack of old clippings, and a silver locket. She picked up the locket, weighing it in her hand. It clicked open with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, a photo of 2 children. The same ones Eli had carried in his pocket, but aged differently, cleaner, cropped. Her adoptive parents had removed the boy's image. Leaving only her, she stared at the empty space where a small face had once been. Beneath the locket were the clippings' yellowed newsprint with the headline, "Missing 5-year-old Elias Rowan disappears in foster home fire." Her throat tightened. She shut the drawer hard. Harder than necessary, this part of her life was boxed, buried, sterilized. She had climbed out of the ash in silence, built an empire from the ground up. No distractions, no softness, no ghosts. She told herself she didn't believe in unfinished stories. But tonight, something in that waiter's eyes had scratched the surface, and for the first time in years, the fortress around her memories began to creak. The shelter smelled faintly of damp wool, burnt coffee, and bleach, the scent of too many lives folded into too little space. Eli stepped inside, tugging off his hoodie. The cold on his skin gave way to the soft, crowded warmth of a room filled with makeshift family, kids curled up on plastic chairs, volunteers restocking shelves, a security camera blinking lazily above the entrance. No tuxedos, no marble floors, no one pretending to be more than they were. He walked past the front desk and into the boiler room, where an old man in a denim jacket and wool cap sat fiddling with wires. Father Jerome, wiry and sharp-eyed, barely glanced up. "Did you do it?" The priest asked without looking. Eli leaned against the doorframe, exhaling. "I saw her." Jerome tightened a bolt. "And?" "She didn't recognize me." "Maybe that's a blessing," Jerome muttered. Eli gave a hollow laugh. "Maybe." He turned, stepping over a busted toolbox and toward a wall of lockers. From the back pocket of his jeans, he pulled the photo again. The edges were softer now, the creases deeper, like it had lived too many lives. "You ever think about why you keep coming back here?" Jerome asked behind him. Eli didn't answer at first. He looked through the small window into the hallway, where a girl around 8 clutched a cracked tablet and waved at him. He smiled faintly and waved back. "This place is the only one that doesn't ask me who I used to be," he finally said. "They just see who I am now. You sure you know the difference?" Eli hesitated. He remembered the fire, the sirens. The last time he saw Claire, covered in soot, reaching for him across the flames before the floor gave out beneath them, she had vanished from his life that night, reappearing only in headlines years later as the rising star of a tech empire. Her eyes in the photos were harder now. Her name had changed. But he'd know her anywhere. He whispered, almost to himself. "I thought maybe she'd remember me too." The lights flickered. The boiler sighed. And Eli sat down on the cold cement floor, legs stretched out, back against the wall, his head resting lightly against the steel, just breathing. The next morning was gray and brittle. A cold rain spat against the sidewalks like the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or hold back. Eli stood outside the corporate tower on 49th Street again. This time not in a waiter's uniform, but in a faded jacket, worn jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. In his hand, A plain cardboard box stamped with the logo of a local courier service. He wasn't here to talk, just to see her again. The guard at the front desk waved him through with a distracted nod, eyes glued to his phone. Eli moved quietly, scanning the hallways as he stepped into the elevator. The digital panel blinked red. 39th floor, executive offices. He stepped out into sleek marble, where everything smelled faintly of cedar and money. Women in heels passed him like ghosts, talking into headsets. Not seeing him, then she appeared, Claire, flanked by two advisors speaking in clipped tones, tablet in hand. She moved like a storm in a bottle, precise, fast, dangerous. Eli paused. A beat too long, their eyes met for just a second, nothing. No hesitation. No flicker, just a glance and gone. She turned the corner and he stood there, stranded in the hallway like a man left behind by time. Hey, you can't be up here. A voice snapped from behind. A young man in a blazer hurried toward him, phone still pressed to his cheek. I was just delivering something, Eli said, instinctively stepping back. You're not registered, let's go. Before things escalated, another voice interrupted. From across the room, wait, said Naomi, a mid-level exec with sharp eyes and a messy bun. I saw him yesterday. He's the one from the gala, right? Eli nodded slowly. I didn't mean any trouble. Naomi looked him over something, skeptical softening in her gaze. Come with me. They slipped into a side lounge where the buzz of the office fell away. Naomi handed him a cup of coffee. She didn't smile, just studied him. So, why are you really here? She asked. Eli stared into the black swirl of the coffee for a long second. She used to be kind, he said softly. Naomi tilted her head. Claire? Eli didn't answer, because part of him didn't know anymore. Naomi sat alone at her desk later that evening. Long after most of the office had emptied, rain streaked the windows. The city outside pulsed in its usual rhythm, oblivious. Indifferent, she couldn't stop thinking about the quiet courier with the faraway eyes. There was something strange about him. Not threatening, just haunted. She tapped her screen and pulled up the internal HR database. She wasn't sure what she was even looking for. Curiosity, maybe? Or a story to make sense of what she'd seen in his face. She typed, Claire Rowan. Personnel file access granted, adopted at age 9, guardians listed, Alan and Meredith Rowan, venture capitalists, original surname redacted. Birthplace, upstate. New York. Then, something unexpected, a scanned article buried in the file, archived under personal history, confidential. Foster home blaze claims, lives of 2 boys still missing. Name, Elias Rowan, age 5, status, presumed dead. Naomi stared at the article. Her eyes flicked between the photo of the boy and the man from earlier today. Same eyes, same jawline. The shape of something unforgotten. She dug deeper, opening a second file. Claire's psychological intake notes at age 9. Severe trauma response. Memory gaps following incident. Expresses guilt over separation from sibling. Rarely speaks of him now. Adoptive parents advised to avoid subject. Naomi sat back, the weight of it sinking in. Claire didn't forget. She erased him. She minimized the window and stared out at the skyline. The distant glimmer of offices still burning into the night. Somewhere out there, Claire was likely curled up in some silk-threaded silence, believing she'd buried the past and somewhere else. Eli was still carrying it in his pocket like a wound that never closed. Naomi's fingers hovered above her keyboard for a moment, then, slowly, she opened a new browser window. DNA testing services, same-day analysis. She didn't know what she was about to start. But whatever it was, it felt like truth trying to find its way back. The shelter hummed with low voices and the rustle of sleeping children. It was nearly midnight when Naomi stepped through the side entrance, holding a small envelope tight to her chest like it might burn through her fingers. Eli was in the rec room, hunched over an old tablet, helping a boy draw shapes on the cracked screen. Naomi watched him for a moment before speaking. You fixed the Wi-Fi? She asked. Eli looked up, a half smile. Sort of. Rerouted the signal through a busted router I found in the basement. It's ugly, but it works. Naomi crossed her arms, still studying him. You're not just a waiter or a courier. No, Eli said softly, turning back to the boy's screen. Not really. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I need something from you. Just trust me. He didn't ask questions, just followed her into the hallway without a word. Naomi handed him a pen and a small swab kit from her bag. He hesitated. I know, she said gently. It's a lot, but I think I know who you are. And I think deep down she does too. Eli's throat tightened. She didn't even blink, not once. Maybe forgetting was her only way to survive it. He nodded slowly, unscrewed the cap, and swabbed the inside of his cheek. No drama. No grand declaration, just a quiet man giving the past one more chance to speak. 2 days later, the results arrived. Naomi opened the file alone in her apartment, heart pounding. Fingers cold. Positive match, 99.9987% sibling relationship. Claire Rowan and Elias Rowan confirmed. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just sat very still, because now it was real, and the truth had teeth. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Eli stood in the workshop alone, soldering a loose wire on a heater. A veteran named Louise leaned in the doorway. You've got good hands, Louise said. Military? Eli didn't look up. Foster care, then mechanic school, then nowhere for a while. Louise chuckled. Still wasted in here. Eli glanced at him. This is the only place people see me. Louise nodded, then walked away, and Eli sat back, eyes drifting to the photo pinned above his workspace. 2 muddy kids, hands clasped, smiles. Wide, still waiting to be remembered. Claire Rowan didn't sleep anymore. Not really. She lay in bed with her eyes open, staring at the cracks in the ceiling that weren't actually there. The luxury sheets were cool and perfect, the city outside alive with late-night ambition, but her chest was tight. Like something old was knocking from the inside. The nightmares had started again. Flames, a crumbling staircase, a child's hand slipping from hers. Then silence. She sat up with a gasp, damp hair clinging to her neck. Her chest rose and fell like she'd been running. Across the room, her phone buzzed, lighting up the darkness with a soft, sterile glow. Unknown number, 5 missed calls. She tossed it aside. She didn't do ghosts. She didn't do memory. She did forecasts, projections, margins of profit, control, and yet the control was starting to fray. At the office the next morning, she snapped at her assistant over a missing report. She forgot the name of a major client mid-presentation. In the boardroom, someone dared to whisper the word burnout under their breath. Claire clenched her jaw so tight she thought it might crack. At noon, she locked herself in her office. Just her, the city, and the sound of silence buzzing behind her eyes. She reached for the drawer again. The locket waited like a dare. She opened it, and this time, she didn't close it. She just stared at the empty space where his face used to be, the hole in her history. The blank she'd covered with ambition and concrete. A knock at the door. She turned, heart jerking, mask snapping back on. It was her assistant. There's someone on the line again. They say it's family. Claire's voice came out quieter than she meant. Tell them not to call again? The door closed. The silence returned, and Claire stood in her corner office, looking out at the empire she had built, wondering what part of her she had buried in the foundation. The shelter's hallway was quiet, lit only by the warm buzz of an overhead light that flickered now and then like it was thinking too hard. Eli sat on a bench, hands clasped, staring at the floor. Naomi stood beside him, a printout folded in her hand. Neither spoke. Outside, a sleek black car pulled up. Claire stepped out. She didn't wear her usual armor, no sharp dress, no entourage. Just a dark wool coat, hair pulled back, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. She walked slowly toward the doors. Inside, Eli looked up at the sound of them opening. Their eyes met. And this time, she froze. The air between them tightened like glass about to break. Claire took a step forward, then stopped. Eli didn't move. I didn't know, she said finally, her voice barely audible. I thought you were dead? I was, Eli replied, just as quiet. You left me there. Claire blinked hard. I didn't mean to. I was 9. I thought you were right behind me. You stopped looking, he said. No malice, just fact. You built a world where I didn't exist. She looked down at her hands, fingers shaking now. I couldn't survive if I kept remembering. Eli gave a slow nod. I know. A pause, then, why now? She asked, because I wanted to see if the girl who held my hand through every storm was still in there somewhere. Claire swallowed hard. Naomi quietly stepped away, giving them space that didn't exist for 20 years. Claire stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, like she was approaching the edge of something she wasn't sure. She could survive. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Me either, Eli said, but we don't have to rush it. She nodded. They stood there, not hugging, not crying, just breathing the same air for the first time in 2 decades, and in that silence something unspoken passed between them, not forgiveness. Not yet, but recognition. The kind that only comes when 2 broken mirrors finally catch each other's reflection. Claire sat on the edge of a rusted folding chair in the shelter's back room, elbows on her knees, staring at nothing. The hum of the vending machine was the only sound. She hadn't spoken in 10 minutes. Eli leaned against the wall across from her, arms folded, watching her quietly, not as a brother needing something, but as a stranger trying to understand the ruins of someone he used to know. You still don't remember the fire? He asked gently. She looked up, voice low. Only flashes, smoke, a scream, a stuffed bear I dropped. Then darkness and a hospital, new clothes, new parents. She gave a brittle laugh. They told me I'd been given a second chance. I just didn't know what I'd lost. Eli sat across from her now, their knees almost touching. You had every right to move on. I just needed to know if I was still real to you. You are, she said, voice breaking slightly. Too real. I've spent my whole life trying to be untouchable, and now... She trailed off, reaching into her coat pocket. She pulled out the locket. The one with the cutout photo. She handed it to him. I kept it, even when I didn't want to. He opened it slowly, stared at the blank space. The wound in metal. You ever think about what life would have been like if we'd stayed together? She asked, almost a whisper. Every day, Eli replied. But I don't blame you. Claire shook her head. You should. He looked at her, eyes steady. Maybe, but I don't, she exhaled hard, rubbing her face. What do I do with this now? With you? You don't owe me anything, he said. Not money. Not an apology. Just don't pretend I don't exist again. She looked at him, tired, raw, undone, then nodded. Not a promise. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of one. The boardroom was a glass box floating above the city sleek. Sterile, untouchable. Claire sat at the head of the table, surrounded by suits who spoke in forecasts and percentages, who measured success in dividends and headlines. A presentation screen glowed behind her with the title, Acquisition Proposal, Rexstar Systems. The numbers were clear, green arrows, expanding margins, projected growth, the price, over 300 jobs. A factory closure in the Midwest. Entire communities displaced. This is clean business, one executive said, tapping his tablet. Efficient. Claire stared at the numbers, then past them, then through them. She hadn't slept again. Her hand rested on a folder, one she hadn't opened until this morning. Inside were profiles, emails, photos of shelter residents, including one of Luis, the veteran who used to work at Rexstar's original plant before it shut down. A quiet man with arthritis in his hands and nowhere left to go. Her thumb traced the edge of the folder. Then she looked up. We're not doing this, she said calmly. The room stilled. Excuse me? One of the board members asked, blinking. Claire closed the folder gently. The acquisition, it's off? That's not your call to make unilaterally. It is, she said, voice like polished steel. I built this company from ashes. I decide what we become. Murmurs. Confusion. Claire, you're emotional right now. This is... I'm aware, she interrupted, standing. What makes me dangerous? I finally feel something again. And I won't let this company destroy people in silence while we toast to quarterly gains. The silence in the room was heavy. Not resistance-awe. Claire walked out without looking back. Downstairs, the city pulsed as always, but something in her had shifted. She stepped out of the revolving doors and found Eli waiting on the step-scout. Zipped, hands in pockets, watching her with cautious curiosity. "I thought you might be gone." He said, "I thought I might be too." They stood together, not as CEO and stranger, but as two people caught between what they were and what they could still become. "I canceled the deal," she said quietly. "I know. Did it matter?" Eli shrugged. "To them, maybe not. To you, I think so." She nodded once, then, without a word, they started walking. The shelter was buzzing with low voices and the scent of warm food. It was the holiday drive. Local volunteers and residents packed into the cramped halls, some passing out donated coats, others sipping cocoa from styrofoam cups. Claire stood in the back corner, hands buried in the sleeves of a soft knit sweater. No makeup, no cameras. Just her. Watching. Eli was on the floor, surrounded by children tugging on his sleeves and laughing at his poor attempts to tie scarves correctly. He looked lighter. Still quiet, but lighter. One of the kids tapped Claire's leg. "You here? To help or just look?" Claire blinked. Then knelt down, gently took the scarf and tied it around the girl's neck with a steady hand. "Better?" she asked. The girl gave a thumbs up and ran off. Claire rose and looked across the room. Eli was watching her. They met in the hallway outside the kitchen, where the hum of the space faded. She reached into her bag and pulled something out, a small, worn object wrapped in a cloth napkin. She unfolded it, the original locket, uncut, untouched, two children inside. Mud on their faces. Grins full of everything they'd forgotten. "I found it last night," she said. "Buried in a box at the bottom of a drawer I hadn't opened in 15 years. Eli didn't say anything. He just took it, hands shaking slightly as if it might disappear. "You kept it all this time?" She nodded. "I didn't forget you. I just buried you under everything I thought I needed to be." A long pause. Then Eli did something he hadn't done in years. He smiled. "Welcome back," he said. And though no one else in the shelter noticed, no cameras, no applause, something rare and quiet happened there. A reunion, not of names, but of souls. Weeks passed. The snow came and stayed, coating the city in a soft hush that made everything seem slower, quieter, kinder. Claire wasn't in the headlines much anymore. She missed 2 investor galas, sold off a luxury condo she barely remembered sleeping in, donated half her wardrobe. No press releases, no announcements. She just changed quietly. One morning, she pulled up to the shelter in an unmarked SUV with the trunk full of supplies, heaters, coats, laptops for the kids. A volunteer asked if it was part of a corporate PR campaign. She just smiled. "No, it's personal." Inside, she and Eli worked side by side. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Sometimes she caught him looking at her, not with judgment, not with grief, but with something simpler, like he was still stitching her back into his memory. And this time she was letting him. Louise gave Claire a respectful nod one afternoon as she handed him a tool set. "He's different since you came back," he said. "Talks more. Laughs sometimes." Claire blinked. "I don't remember him laughing as a kid," Louise chuckled. "Maybe he never had the chance." Later that night, Claire sat in the back office, watching Eli fix a broken space heater with a flashlight in his mouth. She took a Polaroid photo click and handed it to him without a word. "What's this for?" he asked. "For my desk," she said. "Right next to my awards." Eli smiled again, small, real. "You sure that's a good idea?" "I am," she said, "because this one matters." In her penthouse office, sleeker now, simpler, Claire placed the photo beside a single framed clipping. "Missing boy reunites with sister after 20 years. No byline. No fame. Just proof that some things don't stay lost forever. The city breathed beneath them, faint plumes rising from chimneys, windows glowing with ordinary lives, ordinary love. From the rooftop of the shelter, you could hear it all in whispers. Car horns softened by snow, the distant rattle of subway tracks, laughter echoing from a playground across the street. Claire and Eli stood side by side, wrapped in quiet. He held 2 mugs of coffee. Hers had gone cold. "You ever think," she said softly. How close we came to never crossing paths again. Eli nodded. Every day, she glanced at him, you could have disappeared. Chosen not to say anything, I almost did.
What?
Stopped you? He gave a small shrug. Didn't want to haunt you. Just wanted to know if I mattered at all. If that little boy was still in your memory somewhere? Claire looked down at the coffee in her hands. He was, I buried him with everything else that hurt. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the photograph creased, taped, mended over time. The original one. Too muddy. Children, hand in hand. I'm not sure I know how to be anyone's sister. She said, doesn't have to be perfect, Eli replied. It just has to be real. They stood there a moment longer. Watching the sunrise smear gold across the skyline, Dot in her bag sat a folded letter. Her formal resignation from day-to-day operations at the company, a new chapter. One she hadn't dared imagine before. Claire smiled quietly, not at Eli but to herself. Not everything had to be reclaimed, but some things deserved to be restored. Cue soft piano score. A photo appears on screen. Claire and Eli, now in color, standing in front of the shelter, arms around each other. No names, no titles, just a caption. Sometimes the family we lose finds us again when we finally made room.